Palmr to me really meant I want to advocate for something that's so important to us, but I also want to be able to have conversations that aren't really being had.
The focus is always on, the people with type 1. The caregivers have it just as hard.
No, building a community where you could have depression, you could have anxiety, you could have type 1 diabetes.
Insane. There's no other way to say it except for insane. And you have done it beautifully.
Hey Palmr fam, I'm Rebecca.
And I'm Nick.
And we are here for our third
episode.
So excited. Thank you so much for being here. So before we get started today, let's give some Palmr update.
We are in our middle of our pre-Black Friday sale. This is our biggest sale we've ever done. It is bigger than our Black Friday sale. So if you want to buy any of our resort wear and support type 1 diabetes, it is very important that you sign up for our newsletter. The only way that you can be a part of this is if you're on the newsletter. So sign up. You'll be sent a link to be able to shop the 40% off. On Black Friday, it goes down to 35%. On top of that, we're giving away a bunch of amazing free stuff. So at $50, you get free QZ set. At $100, a free Palmr hat. And at $200, we are willing you to pick one of our graphic tees. So we are very excited.
Make sure you subscribe, and we will link it below.
Yes.
In the show notes for you as well.
Awesome. Let's jump into it today. Our last episode, we really talked about me and my journey of, learning to become a dad with 2 kids with type 1 diabetes. And what we didn't get into is now Rebecca's story. So today's going to be all focused around Rebecca. I'm really excited because your story is so unique because you are a single woman who met me and walked into this crazy life. And I think we can all agree my life is pretty crazy. Is that probably an understatement?
A few things that are a little cry.
Let's kind of get into it. So why don't you talk a little bit about your life, who you are, a little bit of your backstory, all of that.
I have one older sister. Her name is Monica. She's 8 years older than me. So I grew up feeling like I had 2 moms. Like Monica acted more like my mom than my actual mom. Could be a little bossy sometimes, but
wait, your sister's bossy?
I know.
I didn't know that. Please,
we love her.
Please don't hurt us, Monica. Please. Okay.
Yeah, so she is 8 years older than I am, and she has 2 little boys who are the loves of my life, along with all of you guys, of course.
Actually, just to kind of touch on that, this is a little side note. When I first met Rebecca, as we talked about, I didn't even really want to date anything. And I don't think I touched on this in the last episode, but when I thought about possibly dating, I was like, okay, if I'm going to date, I need to make sure I date somebody who already has kids.
Yeah.
Right? And Rebecca did not have kids.
No.
But I saw her.
I had a dog.
You do have a dog, an amazing dog named Larry, who we love with all our heart.
Yeah.
I got to see you with your nephews. And I heard from my friends about how amazing you were with even their kid, Kenan, and all that. And I will say that is what changed me, because I was like, man, this girl loves her nephews so much and treats them like their own kids. And so even though you didn't have kids of your own, it's what changed me to consider, pursuing a relationship.
Consider.
Yes.
Thank you, Reagan in Houston.
Yeah.
It's funny because I am just everywhere. I am the aunt that goes to every sporting event possible if I can make to it. I will drive to different cities to go see it. I get so stressed out at all these baseball games and how they're doing. But yes, I am that very hands-on aunt. Kind of to back up a little bit. after I graduated high school, I moved in with my sister. So she had just bought her first house downtown. So I went from high school straight into living downtown with my older sister, which was a blast, which I really feel like having such a large age gap our whole life, that was really the time that, you know, we were both adults and we really like got to know each other and become like friends. And our journey changed a little bit when her now husband, Adam, entered the picture, and he just fit right along with us and eventually moved in too. And we were like the three little happy family musketeers living together. So I actually lived with them for a while. I lived with them all through their dating period, and then even lived with them after they got married. And then finally I was like, oh, I think I should probably like get my own apartment and like live on my own. Like I'm like their child now. So I did that. And then she had her first son, Reagan. And then shortly after had her youngest, Houston. I mean, we're just a very close family. We're a very close Cuban family. We're always together. Like Sunday nights, we're usually having dinner together. We're all very close. And right now we actually live like 1 mile radius from each other. So like we live like a mile from my sister and my nephews, and then like a mile and a half from my parents. Like we're like boom, 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 boom. So we're super close, and I love it that way. I wouldn't want it any other way. Yes, I am the aunt that's very obsessed with her nephews. Yeah.
Wow. All right. So you had a great life before you met me.
Yeah. So then I guess like to kind of touch on it, eventually bought my own house at 27, bought my own house, made it my own, loved that little house. I wish I still had it. I think about it all the time. It was my little girl cave, never had roommates or anything. So always like, once I stopped living with Monica and Adam, I lived on my own. I got a puppy, which was like so crazy for me. But then he became the little love of my life, and he's great. So I lived on my own. I always worked really hard, was always very career focused, always very family focused. And then, and then I met Nick.
When you met me and you learned that I had 2 kids with type 1 diabetes, what went through your head? What was your mind? And how did you feel about the potential, like, stepping into this family dynamic, knowing there was 2 kids with type 1 diabetes?
I mean, I think, like, you did a really good job in, like, our very early on dates of, like, I was able to get to know you as, like, Nick. Yeah. And then, I mean, obviously, I knew you had kids and everything. To be honest, when you told me they had type 1 diabetes, I don't know if I fully understood what that meant. Like, I have family members that have type 2 diabetes, so I just assumed it was along those lines. I never could have imagined everything that goes into type 1.
Yeah.
So, like, I didn't think of it as, like, oh, there's alarms going off all the time. Oh, it's, like, 24, like, hour care. Like, I never, like, my mind never went there. And even after I did find out that they had type 1 and I did like research on like type 1, like there's so much Google can tell you. Yeah. Like it cannot transport you into a day in the life of a parent or a caregiver with type 1 kids.
Yeah, it's definitely crazy. You know, there's a reason why I thought to myself, if I'm going to date again, I need to find someone who already has kids.
Well, you gave me so many outs. You were like, are you sure? Are you sure? Like, I have this, I have that, like all these things. And I'm like, no, like I want to keep talking. I feel like I kept like surprising you every time I was like, no, we should like keep getting to know each other. We're having like a good time together. And you know, you never know what could happen. So I think it was funny. You definitely gave me like a million outs. And I was like, no, we should just keep getting to know each other. But one main thing that I brought up super early too was that I've always wanted to be a mom and have kids of my own.
Yes.
So that has always been very important to me, and it still is very important to me. So that was something that I actually, you know, a conversation you and I had to have pretty early on because, you know, you already have kids. I want to have kids of my own. Like, how is that going to work and what's that going to look like?
Yeah, definitely. It was definitely a big transition for you to step into the role because of you helping out with your nephews so much, your love for them, and how much of a hands-on aunt you were to them. that's what made me feel like, okay, this could be a little bit different. Now, obviously, being an aunt is a little bit different than having your own kids, but it was a good preview for me to say, all right, what type of woman this is.
Yeah, and I think we went about it the best way we could, because we took a long time before, like, while we dated, and like me getting to know the kids, going out to dinners with them, and like taking them outside of your house and into like a neutral environment, and for them to get to know me and me to get to know them. So like I do think we did a good job at that. I mean, obviously at the beginning, like if I'm being completely honest, I didn't know how well it was gonna go, because I did receive a lot of pushback, and I would say from Evie was always the one that we had more pushback from.
Yeah.
And just like not really like, she wasn't very vocal about it. Like sometimes she'd be like vocal to me when like you weren't around, of what are you looking at? And I'm like, you're so beautiful. And then there was one time that I said, oh, Evie, you're so funny. And then she went to you and said, she called me funny, and like she took that as like an insult. And I was like, no. And then I remember you came to me and I was like so upset. I was like, what? Like I was just saying that she did something funny. And like, so there was definitely those stages at the beginning that I was like, can I do this? You know, I love kids, and even just knowing them from like, you know, when we were dating and getting to know them, like I love them. They're so cute. They're so great. They have like their own personalities. Obviously, you get to know them and you're like, wow, they're like these warriors. They're so strong. Oh, yeah. But then there was definitely these times of like, don't know if I really like fit in, or if I'm going to be a good fit for this, or, you know, if I'm like even strong enough for this.
I will say, you know, you see so many movies, TV shows, hear from other people about how bad their relationship is with their stepmom and the evil stepmom.
The evil stepmom, the fact that like, and I'm sorry, I really think it's Disney that did this, that they like made this a thing of this evil stepmom. And even no matter what the situation might be, why you're no longer married to their bio mother, like whatever the case may be, the stepmom always entering into it is the evil one, and then the bad ones, and then they're the ones like coming in between it and like rocking this family dynamic, which again, I'm very passionate about it, and I can talk about it at another time. Not only are you going through this very like difficult, you're changing your entire life. Your entire life, how you knew it, is completely different, because you're not going through the stages of 9 months of preparing for a baby and like going through that and like buying furniture for a baby. It's like when you're a stepmom, it's like, bam, you are here, and overnight, they're your responsibilities when they're with you, basically.
That kind of leads me into my next question. You were in your 30s when we met.
Still in your 30s.
Still in your 30s. So you spent over 10 years being living alone, being an independent woman, to coming into a home with 2 kids with type 1 diabetes. What was the biggest adjustment that you had to make, both mentally and practically?
So I think there is a few things. So I think the first thing that I don't think we did the best was that we moved in to your house. Like I would have wished that we now currently have our own house that we bought together, and it's our house. I wish that we would have like done that prior to me moving in. So like we were all going into like a neutral space. Like this is a new clean slate for everybody, and we're starting new now in this home together. That would be the first like thing that I don't think we did very good. I never could have imagined the sleeping. So I love to sleep, and I never really realized how much I love to sleep with like until now, with all the lack of sleep that I have. The alarms going off at all times. And when we first moved in together, it was, you had that loaner phone. So you had the loaner phone as a backup. You had your phone going off for alarms, and then we had my phone going off with alarms too. So it was 3 phones in one room, just going off at the exact same time if there was a high or a low alert for either one of the kids.
Yeah.
The first night, I remember, rocked me. Like it was startling. It was scary. I'm not the one physically getting up to go to give the kids whatever they're needing at that time. you would always get up, and you still always are the one that goes up and gets up and does that. But I can't go back to sleep. So I learned that really quickly, that I cannot, like, my sleep cannot be disturbed, because then I cannot fall asleep. So many of the nights I would just lay there, and you would just get right back in bed and just start snoring within like 2 seconds. And I'm like, how is this possible? And then even in the early stages, like, let's say the kids just went low and you treated them right for a low, I am like so nervous. Okay, well, what happens if they're just going to drop immediately again? Or like, you can just go to bed. Like, are you just waiting for the alarm? Like, shouldn't you just be staring at it to like avoid the low happening? That was definitely something that I could have never imagined. And I think it has to do a lot with like the lack of sleep. And then that plays into, I didn't realize when your sleep goes, how much else goes within you as a person.
Yes. You know, and that's when we really kind of went on this journey of like self-care. That's why for us, self-care became so important, because we saw that, well, I've been doing for 10 years. I was used to waking up, getting up out of bed, going across the house, giving Gatorade to somebody, kind of staying up a little bit, see them correct themselves, and then going past to sleep. But that was a big challenge for you.
Yeah.
And there's nights when you wake up like, I can't fall back to sleep now. What am I going to do? Then you're tired the next day. And
I mean, there would be mornings and you would wake up and I was still awake.
Yeah.
Like, I had never gone back to sleep.
And thank God it's a little bit better now.
Yeah.
But man, it was pretty brutal in those early days. And so this is why, for us, self-care is so important. And it's like a separate, different journey that what I've gone on versus what you're going on, coming in as a new, stepmom, walking into this type 1 diabetes world. And we've had some pretty crazy things happen to you, especially during that first year.
Yeah.
We're not going to lie. That first year was rough. This woman must really love me, because I don't know how we got through that first year.
I mean, they say that the first year of marriage is really hard, but like, that's an understatement, I feel like, of what we went through. Kind of to share the story, I think it was within like 2 to 3 months that I had we've all been living together, I would say. I started to, so I wasn't sleeping. My sleeping was totally off track. And we were literally doing everything. Like, I was trying to take like baths at night to try to relax me. Like, I had a whole sleep routine going on. Like, nothing was working. Started to have like a pain in my back, and it kind of like felt like a bug bite. And I remember that we actually went and did a staycation that weekend before, because we didn't have the kids. And I was like, hey, can you look at this thing on my back? Like, it's been bothering me. And you're like, yeah, it just looks like a bug bite. And I'm like, yeah, man, like, it's bad. It hurts. It's like annoying me. Fast forward a couple days, I was actually working out with my trainer, and I show her, and she's like, she's very country. She's from Georgia, Lisa, my Southern Belle. And she's like, girl, you need to get that thing checked out. And I'm like, what? Like, it's just a bug bite, right? Like, it can't be anything bad. She got in my head. So I went to like a Central Care that same afternoon, and the doctor's like, you have shingles. The shingles. And I'm like, excuse me? Because I have only heard of the shingles in someone who's older than me. I'm like, wait, I can get shingles at my age? And he's like, yeah, and you have it. And I'm like, oh, that was very stressful in that time, and very like eye-opening of being like, wow, the stress like I'm putting my body through, like, I don't even realize it. Like, I'm just going through, and I didn't realize that I was in like fight or flight mode 24/7.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got shingles in my early 30s, and the doctor actually at the Central Care was like, yeah, you're like one of the youngest patients I've had with it. I'm like, well, this is not something to brag about.
No, it's not.
Come to find out, I also wasn't eligible for the vaccine, and I'm still not, even though I've had the shingles, because I guess you have to wait till you're older. So yeah, it was just a journey. So I was 2 weeks bedridden. it started in the back, like I had mentioned, and then it was kind of this like electric shock pain is what I can explain it to. And it would wrap around my back. It would go towards like my belly button and in my stomach in the front. Some of the nights would get so bad that I would wake you up out of your sleep and be like, I might need to go to the hospital. Like, I have never felt pain like this in my entire life. I don't even know what to describe it, compare it to, because it literally felt like I was getting shocked by electricity the entire time. I had the shingles, but on top of that, like, I know you felt really bad that I had shingles.
Oh, yeah.
And like, you were seeing that I wasn't sleeping, and I know that you felt like you put a lot of blame on yourself. One thing that I really like stressed onto myself that wasn't the healthiest at the beginning is I grew up in a household where we ate dinner every night together as a family. That was really important to me. So I felt like I needed to be eating dinner with you guys. But like, here I am in bed and I like can barely move. So it's like managing that. There's so many expectations, but I really think that was the key moment in our relationship when we were like, it is not selfish to take care of yourself.
Oh, yeah.
So almost that saying of like when you're flying, when they say put your mask on yourself before you help someone else, that is so true. I don't think I would have really like realized that or practiced that if it wasn't for becoming a stepmom.
This whole story of you coming in and talking about self-care, it's really kind of been a major influence for why we're doing Palmr. So I would love to hear from you. What was this journey of you of becoming a stepmom to 2 kids with type 1 diabetes influenced you to want to do Palmr, to do this podcast, all of this?
Kind of a little bit of background in me. I have struggled with my mental health before in the past. I have always known that about myself. It's runs in my family, and it's something that I've always been well aware of. I know that if I push myself to certain limits or if I get stressed too much, my body is the best indication of like, hey, like, you're not treating me well. Example being the shingles. I don't personally have type 1 diabetes, but I have struggled with my mental health before. So Palmr to me really meant I want to advocate for something that's so important to us, but I also want to be able to have conversations that aren't really being like had and being shown on, let's say, the perfect Instagram grid of this perfect life. And it's no, like, there's nothing to be ashamed about. There's nothing to be ashamed about to struggle with your mental health, or there's nothing to be ashamed about that you have type 1 diabetes. You're so strong. You're like way stronger than I'll ever be. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like taking these negative things that could crumble your life and turning them into our own like strengths and something for us to like celebrate it, because we've come so far, I think, and especially for myself with like being a stepmom, I felt lost at the beginning because I was like, okay, well, I can't really call my sister up and ask her. Yes, she has 2 kids, but they're 2 kids of her own. Like, she doesn't know what it is like. I can't really, I felt like I couldn't really parent Parker and Evie because I didn't want to be the bad guy, and I also didn't want to overstep. And like, you know, there's all these fine lines. And I know at the beginning of my journey, I was reading like stepmom book. I remember I would like go on a walk by myself in our neighborhood, listen to the audiobook, and I would come back and I would like tell you things that they're saying in these books, and you're like, you didn't say anything to me at first, but you were like, I don't know, like, it sounds more negative than positive.
Yes. Due to how hard all of this is, from type 1 diabetes, being a stepmom, you know, people have other chronic illnesses. So it's not just about, you know, type 1 diabetes parents, but if there's negativity, it just brings you down so much. And that's what I saw is the negative side of things. And we live in this world where everybody's life story is on social media, right? Everybody talks about it, but they talk about the perfect things, right? And we wanted to be like, no, life is not perfect. Life is hard. Here's our story. This is why we're doing it. This is why self-care is so important, because we are not perfect. We have our moments when we lose it.
Yeah.
We break down. We get shingles because we stress ourselves out. And another big part of this that I want to kind of touch on is the fact that with Palmr, well, it's all about supporting type 1 diabetes. A bigger part of it is also the fact that you have all these caregivers out there.
Mm-hmm.
The focus is always on, the people with type 1. The caregivers have it just as hard.
Oh, yeah.
And that's something I don't really hear about as much, right? And why this whole community coming together, talking about our stories is so important, because we want people to feel like, oh, wait, I'm not alone in this, right? They are like me. They deal with the same struggles of things.
And I think at the beginning, too, of being a stepmom, I mean, because at the beginning, there was just such hard times. Like, there was just so much. And most of the time when I would, like, meet up for a friend with dinner, it'd be, like, me in tears, basically, of, like, how hard everything was. And there would be some people that I would talk to and they'd be like, well, like, you knew what you were getting into. Like, you knew he had 2 kids. You knew they both have type 1 diabetes. Like, stop complaining type of thing. You knew what you were getting yourself into. All those things are true. Yes, I did know you had 2 kids. Yes, I did know that they both had type 1 diabetes, but no one can prepare you for what type 1 diabetes is. And no one can even prepare you of what stepmom life is going to be. You don't know. And every stepmom's story is a little different from the other stepmom. And that really, like, bothered me. Yes, in reality, what you're saying to me is correct. I knew all these things, but shouldn't you hear the person out and try to, like, find a way to support them? And I feel like that's always something that is a part of me. Like, if someone comes to me with something, I mean, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I feel like I'm a good listener. And even if I don't understand it, I want to try to find a way of, like, how can I help this person? It's a strength of mine, but it's also very much a weakness of mine.
Literally just about to say that. You love people and you go so above and beyond that you make the mistake of putting yourself last at times.
Oh, and then I take on
and then you take on everybody's problems and all that.
And
it becomes overwhelming. We love you for that, but you have to also find that balance. And that's been part of this journey. Like, even with taking care and stepping in at times, like, I have to tell you, I need you to step away right now. This is my burden right now. Go out, go do something, leave the house, go on a walk. I got this. You need to go step away and take care of yourself for a little bit. And then you start feeling bad about yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, like, this is what it's about. Especially in those early days, was trying to find those boundaries and how to support each other in a way that was a good balance.
Yeah.
And knowing that, like, we're a team at the end of the day. And we're never going to be perfect. And we need to support each other in a way that's going to be powerful, right? Because if you try to do it yourself, you're going to fail.
Yeah.
But if we can come together, know we both have faults, then we're going to win. And when we got into those mindsets, that is when we are at our best.
Yeah. And I think, like, the whole, like, point of this, and especially doing this podcast and this YouTube channel, is being able to have conversations that may be difficult for you to have with someone else, or, let's be frank, not everyone's going to get it, right? And, you know, some people may be great and they may not get it, and they may, like, try to figure out, like, how to give you advice. It's hard, and it can feel, like, isolating and, like, frustrating when you come out of a conversation when you're like, oh, well, they just told me, like, why am I complaining? I should have known about this. And it's like, no, building a community where you could have depression, you could have anxiety, you could have type 1 diabetes, you could be a caregiver to someone with type diabetes, you could be a sibling to somebody with type 1 diabetes. And it's like, hey, you're all welcome here, and we all have different struggles. We're not going to stay stuck So that was so important to us.
Yeah.
Because I want to say for a good year of our marriage, we were stuck.
Yeah.
And it was like, we kept trying and going at it, and things just were not changing. And I think we were in the mindset of, well, if everything around us changes, then we'll be good. Those things aren't going to change.
No, it's not.
The diabetes is not going anywhere. The fact that we are a blended family is not going to go anywhere. The fact that I deal with anxiety and depression is not going to go anywhere. They're all here to stay, basically. So it's not how to change the things that are going on in our life. It's how to embrace them and say, okay, this is what I have. What am I going to do to be able to get unstuck and move forward with my life? And it's moving forward.
Yeah.
And I think that that's super important. And that's really why we're here with this. And especially when we get into bringing other guests onto the podcast with us to share their own stories. Not everyone's, let's say, diagnosis story is the same. It can be completely different. Even over the weekend when we were with one of our friends that she has type 1 diabetes and she has 2 little kids, she hasn't tested her kids yet. Somebody asked her the question, have you tested your kids to see if they have type 1 diabetes? And it's like, she was like, no, I haven't yet. And you could tell there was like a sense of fear in her.
Yeah.
She didn't have to say it, but you can see that it's like she's dreading that, and she's dreading that day to like take that test and see if her kids have it. And of course, that right there could feel isolating, but it's saying like, hey, I hear you. I see you. You don't even have to say the words that you're nervous about it.
Yeah.
Like, but you're strong and you got this, if that's the case.
100%. And one of the favorite things that me and you do, and I don't know if I've actually talked about this, we send each other so much inspirational stuff on Instagram. Positivity. I mean, yes, we send funny stuff too, but so much is about the positivity and encouraging each other. And especially during those really hard times, it's the little things that make you, like, you read those and you're like, oh no, I do got this. Oh yeah, what we just went through was really hard, but man, we're going to make it.
Yeah.
And more importantly, it's a way of us showing each other we're in this together. And so we do it all the time. Memes, stories, all these inspirational posts.
And I would say another big factor in my journey is that I grew in my faith. So, and I want to say that you were in the driver's seat of that for me. I grew up Catholic, grew up religious, but it wasn't it was kind of like I would go to church and not really understand what they were saying or what was going on. And I always had a relationship with God, but it was like really building that relationship in real life terms. No, you can be angry. You can be upset. He's there to hear it all. And doesn't have to be perfect every time you reach out to him or you reach for him. So that was definitely something that helped me as well. And it continues to help me. And I continue to be in my own faith journey as I go through it and I grow in it.
How did you go about learning to support Parker and Evie when it comes to type 1 diabetes? And what were some of the challenges that you faced when stepping into this role?
So I think I've always been very like adamant that, you know, you're their dad. They have their mom. And then I am like their built-in little like best friend, kind of like an addition. And that's where like the name Beck comes into play and everything. I would say I've always taken the stance of helping them grow and feel more confident in themselves to take steps towards handling their diabetes on their own. So I really feel like I've kind of taken the role of like a cheerleader, you would say, of, hey, no, you're super strong. Yeah, let's do a countdown. You can hold my hand, but you're so strong kind of thing. Also, especially like with Parker, because he's getting to the age where he's more aware of his body and, you know, he should be handling more of it. And I think I've taken that stance of like, okay, well, you're eating this. How much insulin do you think you should give yourself? And kind of like testing that for him. I would say I've taken more of the role of being you can do this. I am behind you if you need me, but you can do it. Type of thing.
That's true. You've been super encouraging for them. Try and just be their friend most of the time, right? It's a good balance.
Yeah. I've never been at night with them where you haven't been there as well. Like, I've never been by myself with them, like, at night when they're sleeping. I mean, there has been times, like, during the day where you've been somewhere and I've been with them. I actually had one really scary time with Evie over the summer, because that's one thing that I don't think a lot of people realize, that summer camps are very limited when you have 2 kids with type 1 diabetes. So either you attend the camp with them and you're there, or the camps that do have nurses or people that can handle type 1 diabetes, it's limited throughout the summer. Most of the summer, when they're with us the entire day at the house. I'll never forget, because you had just left to go to work. I was going to be with them for a few hours during the day. She was playing. She was having a grand old time. And then I get notified on my phone that she's urgent low. And I open my phone and she's 44, 1 arrow down. And I'm like, so I'm like, Evie. And I feel like that was my first time I ever really freaked out, because I also feel like I don't want to like freak out because they feed off of your emotions. So I always try to stay like pretty calm about it. But this time I was like, Evie, like, don't you feel dizzy? Like, are you okay? Like, and she's like, I'm fine. Like, she was playing. So then I was like, okay, let's do a finger prick. Well, obviously I was giving her juice and stuff to get her up and Gatorade. But I'm like, after we did that, I'm like, let's do a finger prick to see if she was really that low. And she was really that low. And that was the first time, like, me by myself of like handling it and she was just like, great, just like, nothing's wrong, back, like, what's going on with you? So
when you do that physical check and they're super low, it is definitely nerve-wracking.
Oh yeah,
I think the lowest I've had was like 26 with Parker at one point. This was years and years ago, but he was 26. Yeah, it was just like, oh my God.
And what's crazy is, like, I mean, I don't know how Parker was at that time. Evie was perfectly fine. She's 44, and she's just like playing with Parker, like twirling around the house, and not a care in the world.
Let's start wrapping this up, but I would like for you to share with us, if somebody is stepping into a new role similar to you, could be a stepmom that's coming into a family with type 1 diabetes or any type of real illness, what advice would you share with them?
So I think it also plays into like a mom getting a new diagnosis of a kid. It's similar, because it's what I stepped into. I didn't know it, even though Parker and Evie had it for years. Well, Evie had only had it for like 2 years, right? At the time, or?
Yeah, so when we met, Evie was 1 year into it.
Yeah. Not everything is going to be perfect. Actually, nothing's going to be perfect.
No.
Let me reword that. Nothing is going to be perfect. And you're going to have to be okay with that. And you're going to have to find ways to live with that and be okay with it. Really just hone in on who you are to your core and what makes you you. Because I truly believe, and my parents always tell me this, you are chosen to be in this role for Parker and Evie and to be married to Nick. I'm here for a reason. So let me go along with my journey and make it the best journey that I can be. And instead of being stuck in, oh, should I have done this? What happens if I didn't marry into this? Like, it could have been so different, or all the times in the past. It's moving forward and staying focused on, I mean, I would just say really grounding yourself in your faith. And being honest with yourself and being honest with your partner, even being honest with the kids. Like, there has been conversations that I've had to have with the kids of like, it was uncomfortable for me, but it's like, hey, I am here. I'm the other adult in the house. You're trying to do something that could cause you harm. Like, I'm going to tell you, like, no, you shouldn't be doing that. And where that didn't come very naturally to me, I have been able to grow into that, but I've had to find my balance in my groove. And that, I think, stems from who you are and how much you can handle and what you want your journey to be about. And I think it's like really blocking out the outside noise, because there's so much outside noise. There's so many different factors that can play a role into you being a stepmom and even your marriage, that you just need to block it out and stay focused on what why you're here and what you're doing and what you really want to be known as. I want Parker and Evie to grow up and be like, I mean, there's times where I'm like, they do stuff and I'm like, do you want to give me a heart attack? You're going to give me a heart attack. And it's just like being honest with them. I don't feel like I really act like they're like little kids. I treat them like they're my friends. And I think that that's really been important. So, and then just finding your own groove of things. It's not going to be, your journey is not going to be the same as another stepmom. It's not going to look the same way. And your life is going to look different than your best friend that could have 2 kids of their own. Like, it's all going to be different, and just staying positive through it. And then joining our community and knowing that you're not alone, because we've done it. We are a blended family with type 1 diabetes also in it. So I think we're pretty rare, but everyone out there has their own story. So yeah, connected.
One of the things that I love, and I just wanted to kind of like repeat this, is you have to be honest with your partner.
Yeah.
Because if you aren't, you can't help each other.
No.
Right? And it's those times when we hold in our emotions and our feelings, and then we don't become our best. We don't know that how the other person is feeling and says, hey, oh, no, hey, go take a break. Go step away. You need to do something else for a little bit. Let me step in. And you only know that by the communication and being honest. And that, but that also goes with the kids. And I think that's stuff that, you know, there's been times where I've really lost my patience with my kids being upset. And you've done a beautiful job stepping in and saying, hey guys, listen, I'm sorry that your father was upset. You know, he's angry right now. Things are hard. He was up with you guys all last night. Like, your blood sugar, he's working on very little sleep. Just give him a little bit of grace right now. He didn't mean, he loves you guys, all that, right? Like, you've done a beautiful job stepping in and doing those, but we're not our best because, like, we communicate with each other of, hey, we're struggling right now.
Yeah.
Hey, we're tired, all that type of stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow.
We're doing it.
We are. I would just, with us ending, I just want to say, one, I am so proud of you, because what you've done over the last 3 years, stepping into the life of me and my 2 kids with type 1 diabetes, is insane. There's no other way to say it except for insane. And you have done it beautifully. Not perfect. None of us have. It's been good times and bad times and hard times and lots of crying, for sure, right? But you have been so brave, so strong, and it's one of the reasons why I love you so much, is to see you come in here and do what you do when you didn't have to. I just want to tell her personally, thank you. You're amazing.
Thank you. I wouldn't picture my life any other way. I love it.
Good.
All right. Well, thanks for joining in, Palmr fam, and we look forward to the next one, and see you soon.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.